Hi guys, Rachel here. How is everyone? So this is my long-awaited classical music video, which is a VR to the lovely Giselle over at Mad Witch. Some time ago, she had made a fun little video showcasing her record collection, and she asked to see my top 10 favorite classical albums. And I'll admit, I couldn't do it. If I'm honest, I could create a list of my 10 favorite Mozart alone, or a number of other composers. I have quite a collection, and I think I did it. Well, it's way over 10. So many others that I could choose, and my collection is still growing, but there's not really any rhyme or reason to the ordering of them. Let's see here. Where do we begin? So I love Mozart, as I mentioned, and I think some of his best works are the piano concertos. And I almost said he recorded. Yeah, he recorded. He had a recording studio, guys. Didn't you hear? No, he wrote, it was 27, right? 27 piano concertos, which is quite a bit, considering they were all really great. So where do I even start? I love this Philips label that I've had for years and years. And this is Alfred Brendel, Academy of St. Martin in the Fields, Sir Neville Mariner. Just always a go-to for me when it comes to the Mozart recordings. I love Sir Neville Mariner. But the other one that I chose is, these are the complete piano concertos performed by Mitsuko Uchida. And is this also a Philips label? Yeah, I'm not going to talk about the labels on I'm sorry. Anyway, I love her. I've been following her for years. I think she's coming to Boston this season. I think she's going to be at Symphony Hall. Maybe I should try to go see her. But I think she's going to be doing the piano. Yeah, the piano, guys. Oh my God. The Beethoven Piano Concerto No. 4, which we just heard in Tanglewood, so which is fine with me. But Tchaikovsky, Swan Lake. Now, this recording is a rather recent acquisition for me. I've had the highlights for years, and I don't know, I was suddenly compelled to buy the ballet in its entirety. And this here is the Boston Symphony Orchestra under Seiji Ozawa, who, Seiji, he died recently, actually. This is a lovely recording. And what can I say about Swan Lake? Sometimes I find you take for granted some things which are, extremely popular. Like, I've heard that Tchaikovsky is probably the most popular composer of all time, and Swan Lake is right up there with the Nutcracker. But we were blasting this one day on the stereo and dancing around and putting a puzzle together, and it's just so good. That's all I can say about it. It's so beautiful. I'd honestly forgotten how good it was. Mendelssohn. This is another one that I listen to quite a lot. This is the Octet, which I think he wrote when he was a kid. And the Quartet No. 2, the Cleveland Quartet and the Meloria Quartet. And I don't really know what to say about it, but I love Mendelssohn. So next up, we have, you guys have heard me talk about this before, Stravinsky's Rite of Spring. And I have more than one recording of this. This is Colin Davis, the Concertgebouw Orchestra, Amsterdam. And I have, I don't know, I have like maybe 4 or 5 different recordings of this ballet. But my favorite one is this newer recording, or I consider it new anyway. I think it's about 10 years old. The Stravinsky, conducted by, I'm not even going to botch his name, and it's probably backwards. Because I wasn't really familiar with him actually until he started conducting the Philadelphia Orchestra, which is just renowned. I love the Philadelphia Orchestra. This recording is a stunner. It's probably my favorite. Now, funny backstory about The Rite of Spring. So I'm going to try to tell a few funny stories just for maybe some of you out there don't like classical music, but you want to watch anyway. So some years ago, I was between phones. My phone had died and I needed some sort of backup until I could figure out what I was going to do. And I've had an iPhone for some years, and I have an iPhone primarily because I've been an iPod user for years. I love my music library. And my boyfriend, he gave me one of his old phones. It was an older iPhone model. And so I was able to plug it into my laptop and sync my iTunes library onto it like you used to be able to do. You can't do that anymore, which I think is total BS. Luckily I have most of my old library saved. Anyway, that phone was possessed. So I didn't even know that you could do this. So I don't know if you can follow this story, but it's related to the Rite of Spring. So I had like, I don't know, maybe 3,000-4,000 tunes saved on that phone in my library. And I always set alarms in the morning to get my daughter up for school. And one morning we woke up to the Rite of Spring blaring really loud. And I kind of ignored it because I didn't know what was going on. It was just part of my dream. And then my boyfriend was shaking me and he's like, Rachel, why is the Rite of Spring blaring? And I'm like, what? I don't know. And then I grabbed my phone and I realized it was my alarm. And so I didn't even know that you could do that. You can actually go into your library and select one of your tunes and set it as an alarm. And what's funny about it is, if you know the Rite of Spring, I forget what bit of the ballet that's called, but it's probably the most, the most famous part of the ballet, where it's like dun 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 dun. You know what I'm talking about? But that's not even how the ballet begins. In this particular recording, the tracks are broken up into like something like 20 different tracks. Some of my other albums, they only break it into 2 different tracks, but this has a separate track for each different dance in the ballet. I forget what that's called, but my phone, somehow, I don't know, it was on the fritz. It was, like I said, it was a really old model, and it did really weird things. Like sometimes it would send people photos that I didn't even have in my camera roll, but they were pictures from inside my house. It was really weird. I don't know if you can even follow this, but my phone had somehow, in its possessed state, gone into my iTunes library and hijacked it and set the Rite of Spring as my alarm. And when I told my boyfriend, I was like, how did this even happen? I didn't do this. He's like, what are you talking about? That sounds exactly like something you would do. Like, that's so you. I'm like, no, I didn't do it. So I used to make the joke that that weird phone was in sync with my heart. And I don't know if anyone followed that. I might edit that out of the video, but it still makes us laugh to this day. Look at this album cover here. Scriabin. This is the beautiful piano concerto, the only piano concerto that he ever wrote. And this is performed by Vladimir Ashkenazy. I love Ashkenazy. Yeah, I don't really know what to say about it. I could go into a long history about all of the composers and everything, but I don't think that I really want to be here all night. But if you've never heard the Scriabin Piano Concerto, check it out. My boyfriend wasn't familiar with it, and he heard it the first time this summer, and he's like, oh, what is this? This is so beautiful. This is so romantic. And it is. It's so romantic. It sounds like it's straight out of old Hollywood, one of those Max Steiner musical scores. Ah, gorgeous. So pretty. Another recent acquisition is Puccini La Boheme. Now, I had another recording of this, but this is, you know, one of the Decca labels, which are always great. And as a kid, well, not a kid, I was more like a teenager collecting operas. Oh, they were so expensive. They were usually about $50 retail, sometimes more. And I was lucky enough recently to get this at a secondhand store for $3. It's the Berlin Philharmonic, Karajan. Is it Karajan or Karajan? I think I've heard it pronounced Karajan. And Pavarotti is in it, and oh my gosh, it's beautiful. So another funny backstory is my boyfriend, a couple of weekends ago, he was away at some negotiation for work, and he was heading back from Maine with some lawyer. I'm not going to talk about what it was, but he was in negotiation with some orchestra, and he was in the car. He told me this. He was in the car with his lawyer friend, and they were talking about music, and he's like, oh, Rachel actually is a huge classical music fan, you know, because my boyfriend, he's a jazz guy. He's like, she loves it. And I bet you when I go home, some weird classical music's going to be blasting, right? So when he walked in, I was blasting this, but I didn't know we'd had that conversation. And he teased me about it, as he always does, but he's like, wow, what is this recording? This is amazing. It's so perfect. And I was making a joke that it was so loud that the neighbors were going to be saying like, wow, like this guy is way too Italian. Our neighbor is way too Italian. Because my boyfriend's really Italian, and he always plays that up, you know, he always plays up the Italian thing. Anyway, I don't know. Wagner, The Flying Dutchman. And I kind of want another recording of this. This is good, but I've heard, this is from the 60s, I believe. It is not the clearest recording, and I've heard some others that I really enjoy. But yeah, we used to really love The Flying Dutchman when we were kids, like when we were in our early 20s. My friends and I don't remember how it started, but we used to pregame before parties with this. Like we would blast certain pieces from this opera in cars and like come to the party with this, like shattering the windows of the car basically. Yeah, and then we'd run around cornfields and stuff, because that's where I grew up, was like in the farming community. So that's fun. What else do we have? All right, some more Mozart here. This is one of my pride and joys, this recording here. This is the Juilliard string quartet and the Marlborough ensemble, and it's the 6 string quintets and the clarinet quintet by Mozart. And I mentioned already, I love his piano concertos. I think that his quintets are also amongst his finest things ever written. They're so beautiful. And I found this in a bull moose. If anybody's watching that is familiar with New Hampshire and Maine, you can find bull mooses in most cities, and they're awesome. They're just these used media stores. You can find music and film and sometimes books. Not all of them carry books. It depends on how big their storefront is. But I love bull moose, and I found this so cheaply. Like I think it was $10 or something, and it's I call this the butter recording. It's just so smooth, like butter. It's just beautiful. Oh, I love it. I listen to that all the time. The Complete Mahler Symphonies conducted by Leonard Bernstein, New York Philharmonic. And I love this. This is so cute. All of the CDs in here are like little mini reproductions of what they looked like as originals, you know, when they were on vinyl, which, you know, you can still find these, but I don't have any of the vinyls. So that's fun. Yeah, it was a big Mahler spring for me. And I also really love some of the Bernstein when he was conducting the Vienna Philharmonic, but I can't find recordings of that, only videos, which is a shame. This is Leon Fleischer playing the Rachmaninoff Rhapsody on a Theme of Paganini, which is one of my favorite pieces of all time. It's just amazing. This is a gorgeous, gorgeous rendition. And another lucky find for me. This didn't cost me very much. I found this thrifting, I believe, but I was just so thrilled. Tchaikovsky. This is the Piano Trio, which I heard he wasn't really fond of writing piano trios, but oh, is this gorgeous. This is Perlman, Ashkenazi, and Lynn Harrell, I believe, on cello. Yeah. So this is just so unabashedly romantic, but it's, I don't know, it's just so level. Like, it's just so, it just feels so sincere. You know, there's no facade about it, but it's so romantic. That's how it makes me feel. It's just gorgeous. My heart just swells with the music. So another backstory about this is, this was my jam when I was going through a really difficult time some years ago. I was going through an extremely messy divorce, and I was temporarily displaced from my home for about like 3 months. So I was staying somewhere, and every day for weeks, when I had a quiet moment where I didn't have to take care of my daughter, I would go down into the woods and in the snow with a beer and a cigarette, and I would listen to this, the Tchaikovsky Piano Trio. And I don't know why. It was just something I did like every day. And it's funny because I have a habit sometimes of associating things with memory. And if it's associated with a bad memory, sometimes that can tinge my reception of that object or piece of music or what have you. Or sometimes the whole place is ruined if I'm associating it with a person. I've gotten better at that over the years, but luckily this here is untouched by those difficult times. So it's a beautiful piece of music. If you're not familiar with it, check it out. The Tchaikovsky Piano Trio. I'm pretty sure it's the only one he wrote. It's the Piano Trio in A minor. So, I mean, I'm just saying I assumed because it just says the Piano Trio on the cover, but maybe he wrote more than one. But it's, yeah, the Piano Trio in A minor. I love Rossini. I think he's so much fun. He was so successful during his time. He was like a contemporary of Beethoven. So like, you know, like the Romantic age, like the earlier 1800s, that he was so successful that he decided to just retire. He'd written so many operas that he retired and, you know, focused on cooking. Like there's a dish named after him. But I like Rossini no matter what Beethoven says. Beethoven wasn't a fan, because maybe Rossini was more of like a pop star. I don't know, but his operas are really great. And nowadays, most people really only know his overtures, which you've all heard, like his overtures, William Tell and the Barber of Seville and all that jazz. Well, no, all that jazz is not one of his. But anyway, this is La Cenerentola. This is Cinderella. And oh, have I listened to this over and over and over again over the years. And this is a Sir Neville Mariner recording, which when I buy operas, I tend to consider first the conductor. That's how I gauge it, because you know, they're the art, sort of like the artistic overseer. I mean, there's other people in the production, but I usually start with the conductor, not necessarily the individual singers. And again, he's just oh, this is a beautiful recording, and it's so much fun. It's a comedy. It's and there's, instead of an evil stepmother, it's an evil stepfather. And Raimondi plays that part of what's his name, Don Magnifico, and he's one of my favorite singers. I just love him. He has such range. But just a joy to listen to. This was another jewel of a find for me, this Renaissance music for brass. Look at this album art here. These guys with these green faces and these frilly colors. I just love it. I've been an early music fan for years. So sometimes with some of these that I'm showing, like, you know, this is early music. Is it? No, it's not part of the classical age. But when people think classical music, there's all sorts of genres under that umbrella, and we're going to go with it. But yeah, this features music by Heinrich Schütz, John Adson, Giovanni Gabrieli. It's all music from the 1600s, and it's transcribed for brass, which I love. I love brass. This is one of my favorite things to play, especially while cooking. All right, some Beethoven. Okay, so the symphonies. I have various recordings. I have the Leonard Bernstein Beethoven 9 symphonies in this slim little box set, which is rather nice. And I also have Sir George Solti, the Chicago Symphony Orchestra. Look at how gorgeous this is. So with the Beethoven symphonies, yeah, I don't know, like my favorite Sixth Symphony recording is this here by Sir George Solti. And then I really love the 7th Symphony conducted by Bernstein. It's kind of all over the map, but sometimes with these, you know, these heavy pieces of music, you're going to go after various different recordings and find which suits you best. But yeah, I'm so happy to have this. All right, so Mozart again. I love his operas, and I love Don Giovanni. I love The Magic Flute. I love The Abduction from the Seraglio and many others. But if I wanted to choose just one for this video for the sake of brevity, and I went with The Marriage of Figaro. So, I mean, look at this amazing album art here. Isn't this perfection? This like magenta color. Is it magenta on this orange? This is the the BBC Symphony, Colin Davis. I also have this one here. This is Renee Jacobs. This is a Harmonia Mundi recording. So it's played all on period instruments, which when I was first into classical music, I wasn't a huge fan of, but I've grown to really love it. But my favorite recording is probably, again, Sir Neville Mariner, the Academy of St. Martin in the Fields. It's just so perfect. It's so perfect. The orchestra and the voices complement each other to a T. You know, they're not in competition with one another. There are people singing and having duets with clarinets. You know what I mean? It's so perfect. Oh, it's just amazing. So that's my favorite recording. But there's so many good ones. Beethoven, the Complete Violin Sonatas. This is Perlman on violin and Ashkenazi on piano. I love this. And this is actually my daughter's, technically, because when she was about 6 or 7 years old, she begged for this for Christmas after watching documentaries on Perlman and Ashkenazi. I don't remember how she got into that. I think I was just watching something on TV and she likes to get into what I'm into. But I love the violin sonatas. In particular, like the Spring is so beautiful. The Spring Sonata and the Kreutzer, however you pronounce it. The Kreutzer Sonata, oh, one of my all-time favorite pieces. But this is another like butter recording, just perfection. Let's see. I love Monteverdi, as you guys have probably heard me gush over him. And this particular CD here happens to be a compilation. This is a compilation of his best, or just, it's just a compilation. It's just somebody's idea of what his best works are. So it's all different sorts of musical ensembles performing these different pieces by Monteverdi. It's a 2-disc set by Deutsche Grammophon. And it's called The Beauty of Monteverdi. And if you like Monteverdi or want to get into him, I would recommend this little CD. I don't know if it's on vinyl or not. Stravinsky, again, this is another thing that I'm really proud of. This is the complete works of Stravinsky, conducted by Stravinsky. So this was one of my Christmas gifts about, I don't know, 9-10 years ago. And yeah, there's debate on whether or not, like, some people like to say that Stravinsky didn't know how to conduct his own works, which you could argue, well, he wrote them, wouldn't he know best? So like, I personally love these recordings, but I will say there are 1 or 2 pieces that these aren't my favorite. I love this. I love this so much. I don't have time to talk about it, but I love Stravinsky. And for the complete works, I think this costs like $30 or something, which at the time was a lot for me because I was really, really broke that year. But I'd wanted this for years and it kind of came down in price. I think it was like around $100 for a while, and then it got marked down and I was so happy. So again, with Stravinsky, I love this recording. This is Valery Gergiev. I think he's amazing, an amazing conductor. The Mariinsky Orchestra and Chorus. It's also on this album is Oedipus Rex, which is also another one that's not for everybody. And it's you know, narrated, if you want to call it narrated. The orator's voice is played by Gérard Depardieu because the narration is in French. And yeah, the wedding, Les Noces, is just this another crazy ballet, and it's got all these pianos, like more than one piano, and it's I love the arrangement. I think Stravinsky did more than one arrangement of this. He reworked it, and this recording is absolutely insane. It's perfect. I asked my boyfriend about it. I'm like, listening to this, like, is this real? Like, it's just, I've never heard it played at that pace without a hiccup. It's just, it's amazing. Okay. Schubert, I love Schubert. The Trout Quintet and Death and the Maiden. And this is the Amadeus Quartet. And oh my gosh, I told my boyfriend I was playing it in the car one day, and I'm like, we're gonna listen to some jazz. I was playing the Quout. Why can't I talk today? The Trout Quintet, because to me it does sound a bit like jazz to me. And speaking of Death and the Maiden, look at this beautiful LP here. This is the same recording, but I love this cover art. So yeah, Schubert was another one of those guys who died like really young. I feel like they just worked themselves to death. When you're consumed with art, sometimes you forget to take care of yourself. I've been there, not like I'm some crazy genius on a level with Schubert, but I've been there where I've worked so hard on a piece of art, whether it's writing or painting or what have you. I've found myself with a cold afterwards because I didn't eat enough, various other factors. But Yeah, speaking of Schubert, here's some more. This is the Beaux Arts Trio, the piano trios, which are amazing. Some of my favorite pieces of music. And this is a wonderful recording. Trying to move a little bit more quickly because I realize it's already 35 minutes in. Sorry about that, guys. More Beethoven. I love his piano sonatas. I think that they're some of the most expressive things he ever wrote, and they sound so symphonic to me in scale. It's just amazing that so much could be conveyed on one instrument. And I mean, it kind of makes sense because I think that's how a lot of people composed or still do compose. They go to the piano first. So I own the H.J. Lim complete Beethoven, and first off, I love this. I listen to this all the time. But if I'm honest, the reason that this is the set that I own is because at the time I really wanted all of the Beethoven sonatas because I was taking a course on the Beethoven sonatas. And this was the most affordable. Like the Barenboim, I think there's a complete Barenboim. Or maybe it's some other bloke. But there's a few different sets out there, and they were all pretty expensive, and this one was more affordable. And she's gotten some flack about the fact that she plays on a Yamaha, you know, just, you know, musical snobbery. And also, I think if I remember right, she played according to Beethoven's metronome markings, which Beethoven famously said, like, basically, F the metronome. He was like, no metronome at all. He was like, Beethoven's another one of those guys that scholars like to disagree with. But I think that she really hits the mark with passion conveyed, and if Beethoven was anything, he was passionate. And she plays really, really fast, but not without emotion, in my opinion. And I really, really love these recordings. So this is something that I've listened to countlessly over the years. And yeah, it's a EMI Classics label, and I adore it. I have some other recordings too, not in full, but I have some by Ashkenazi, and I have some Glenn Gould, but some of it I really enjoy and some of it not so much, and we'll get into him later or soon because I've got to wrap this up. So Philip Glass, you guys might have heard me speak about Philip Glass on my channel. Love him. I am a big fan of his triptych of operas. Okay, so there's Einstein on the Beach. There's Satyagraha, if I'm pronouncing that right. And there's Akhenaten. So with these three operas here, Philip Glass was honoring three men who had the biggest influence in the three fields which you could argue most influenced human development, what makes us human, right? That's the only way I can word it. I'm not very well worded right now, but anyway, let me just make this clear. So Einstein is science, okay? Gandhi, politics, and Akhenaten, religion. So these were written in the 70s, and I think all three of them are amazing. I would love them on vinyl. I can't really afford it right now. They're just ridiculously expensive, and these weren't that cheap either, the CDs. But if I had to choose one, I think I would have to go with Akhenaten, because Akhenaten is the one that I listen to the most frequently. I listen to this all the time. I play this when I'm writing. I play this sometimes when I'm doing my tarot readings for myself. I go on, you know, I go astral traveling with this. It's amazing, especially this recording, the Stuttgart State Opera Orchestra and Chorus, conducted by Dennis Russell Davies, is amazing. It's another one of those things where my boyfriend is not a big Philip Glass fan, but he actually does like this a little bit. I'm trying to convert him, but his music is unsettling to my boyfriend. And I said, I think I understand why. I said, I feel all the time when I'm listening to Philip Glass that it's music that is shed of ego, and shedding the ego can be extremely uncomfortable, right? So, maybe that, Mozart is so pleasant because, I mean, I love the guy, but a lot of it is full of ego, right? But, yeah, I can't say enough about the Philip Glass operas, so check them out. So look at this, guys. Check this out. Isn't this amazing? This is one of my favorite things. I love this photo. Isn't this beautiful? Bernstein and Gould. This is the Beethoven Piano Concerto No. 4, conducted by Bernstein, New York Philharmonic, Glenn Gould, pianist. It's a beautiful recording of a beautiful concerto. Oh, I just love it. And I have the CD as well. And speaking of Gould, I love these. I love the Beethoven Liszt piano transcriptions. So Franz Liszt transcribed some of the Beethoven symphonies for straight up piano, which I actually like. I wasn't always too much of a fan of certain transcriptions, but this is good, and Gould is good on this. And I love this. Again, with Bernstein, this is Gould. Some of the Bach piano concertos. These are awesome. I love Gould's interpretations here. And then we have, okay, probably one of his most famous recordings, the Goldberg Variations. This is like the 1955 recording, I believe. There's also, is it 1981, which is also amazing. I have that on CD, just not on LP. And I don't want to like get into Gould too much because that could fill a whole video, and I don't think I'm the man for the job, or literally. But yeah, okay, so for an example though is how Gould was controversial is this recording of the Brahms concerto. This this got a lot of flack because he didn't play it the way that everybody else had played it. And Bernstein himself made a famous speech, which is part of the recording, saying that he didn't exactly agree with Mr. Gould's interpretation, but he admired him as a thinking artist and he wanted to give it a go. So a lot of times with piano concertos, the conductor and the orchestra are following the pianist, like the pianist is leading the show. So what Gould was trying to do with the Brahms was he was trying to like unify it. He was trying to give the piece a, I think I've heard the word backbone quite literally, and that makes sense. He wasn't a fan of like all of the contrast. He felt like the piano was battling the orchestra. And I'll say I've listened to many different recordings of it, and I grew to really, really love this, the Brahms piano concerto, and over time this became my favorite. I think it really does have a lot of feeling in it, a lot of soul. I was listening to this on the beach this summer, and I was staring into tide pools, and I was playing this, and I didn't know where I didn't know where the sea ended and I began, or who Brahms was. Was I Brahms? Was I Gould? Was Gould Brahms? Was like, I mean, I don't know. It was just, I'm not articulating it very well, but I really enjoy this recording. And then we have something like the Mozart, which some of it made me smile, okay? Some of these sonatas rendered by Gould really made me grin. But then there was this one particular piece. It was the Fantasia, one of the Fantasias. Which one was it? was it the Fantasia in C? I just couldn't. It sounded to me as if, you know, have you ever seen, you know, the Ministry of Silly Walks? So if they were a minister of silly walks, it sounded as if the minister of silly walks sat down at the piano. Because people sometimes accuse him of trolling. I don't fully agree with that. I don't think with a lot of his ideas he was trying to troll, but with this piece, it made me think, like, maybe he is. I don't get it. But I do enjoy a lot of the things on here. And then this is another recent acquisition. This is a beautiful album. Nicola Benedetti, she's amazing. I was playing this in the car and my boyfriend was like, who the hell is that? Who is that? And he'd never heard of her. She's killer. This album is called Baroque, and it's mainly Vivaldi and La Folia, and it's beautiful. It's beautiful. It's one of the best recordings of these pieces that I've ever heard. I highly recommend it if you like early music. So did I show everything that I wanted to show? So we'll end with this. I hope I did a decent job, and I'm sorry it wasn't 10. It was probably like 30 or something, and I think that I've been talking for almost an hour. Well, I'll see if I can slim it down. But if anybody enjoyed this and they'd like to hear more, I mean, maybe at some point I'll make another video highlighting my favorite albums. Maybe I won't include classical because we would be here for 2 days. There's lots of other different types of music I enjoy. So, or if you want to hear more about my love of classical music, I'm sure you'll hear about it here and there, but I don't know. Maybe in the future I will actually sit down and really do a better job of trying to narrow it down to just 10. But anyway, for all of you who are still here, thank you for sticking with me. All right, guys, that'll do it. Bye.